What if you could radically change your life just by making small 1% changes? Those 1% changes can have a profound effect on the trajectory of your life. In the book, Atomic Habits, James Clear shares practical steps on changing your habits and changing your life. We review his book today and discuss habits in this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood Podcast. Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood Podcast, a place where Christian single women aged 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started. Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood Podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in Kazakhstan. Thank you for listening. It's a blessing to provide this podcast for free, but it does cost us to produce Jesus People Sisterhood episodes. It would be a great blessing to us that if you decide to buy a book mentioned in this podcast, you purchase it through the link in our episode show notes.
So we're discussing habits today and focusing on James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. But before we get to that, I want to share something I heard in my devotional today. We were reading John 13, and I was doing the Tara Lee Cobble Bible Recap New Testament. And something that she shares, so you read some scripture and then there's a little video that you listen to, and she shares some thoughts. And one of the things she shared in John 13, Judas, it's about the Last Supper, and it says that it was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And then later on, as they're having supper, when Judas leaves, it says Satan entered him, and then he left the Last Supper. So Tara Lee was saying that I think some of us feel sorry for Judas, like, okay, why did he end up doing that? Like, was it his sin or Satan took him over and he got used? And it was interesting. She said that a pastor or some teacher had shared with her how if you take the back off of a piano. I Googled this and looked it up to just verify. And if you take the damper off the strings of a piano and you sing a note, that string that's the same note will resonate and it'll play. So you can actually play a piano without touching the keys. And so she shared, and I just found this really interesting, is that Satan incites us to sin, but he knows the sins or the things that are going to resonate with us. So it's this idea of like, if you think about, okay, Satan probably can't get me to murder somebody.
Right.
Resonate with me.
Right. Okay. Yep.
But there's probably other sins, like being mad at somebody for something I shouldn't be. Something like that, because he knows what sins he can incite me to do because it resonates with me. The point being in this particular devotional was that Satan didn't get Judas to do something he w wasn't already willing to do. And when you think about it, he was a treasurer and he was stealing the money, and then he sold, betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. So
Right.
it makes sense that
Mhm.
he knows what our sin weaknesses are. And I just
Mhm.
thought that was something to think about for each of us, to think about, okay, where are the places where I'm more likely to sin, and to realize that that's kind of how Satan works in getting us to do something, because it's a temptation to do something that already resonates with us.
Hmm.
So I just
Ah,
thought that was fascinating because I didn't even know that about pianos.
I
That
didn't know that.
that
Yeah.
like you could actually, if you took the damper off, you actually sang a note. The piano would play the note.
Wow.
That's
That's really
amazing.
interesting. Uh-huh. And I'd had heard before that people would say that maybe it wasn't as much his fault, but if we have sins or we have that kind of sin nature or those sin points, I guess, right? The
Mhm.
devil could use them. And if we have a propensity or something for a certain sin. Yeah. So that's interesting. Wow. What good insight. Huh. Okay.
Right.
Well, I have something that I want to share too, and that is we put up an article that up in the private Facebook group, and it
Well,
was
actually, I
from,
think it's in the public Facebook page.
oh, is it on the public page? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was from the Journal of the American Geriatric Society. And they had come up with this study citing how 20% of the US population will be 65 or older by 2030. And the study's findings came at a good time, providing insight into specific methods of social engagement that are the most impactful. So, three types of activities were found to be particularly significant predictors of reduced death risk. And that was charity work, engagement with grandchildren, and attending sports or social clubs. The study just confirmed that we need each other. We need not just to go to certain events and participate as sort of solo artists, but that we have to be actively engaged in our in social work or in relationships with others. And so that was interesting because those other activities, such as playing card games, participating in community arts groups, or attending educational or training courses, really showed no significant effect in having people live longer. That was pretty interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, and that was really amazing. And I encourage people to go read that article, because I think we just thought, hey, if you're getting out there
Right.
taking courses or going to the arts group or whatever, that
Hmm.
that was this social interaction. But actually, that didn't seem to have any real impact.
Right.
It was doing charity work, which they don't elaborate on what charity work is, but I would guess when you're actually getting your hands dirty and doing something for people,
Right.
right? And then engagement, or really working with other people, because sometimes maybe you're not seeing the people you're doing something for. You're packaging up food or something and you don't see
Right.
them, but you're working with other people,
Hmm.
and obviously engaging with your grandchildren, and then attending sports and social clubs. It's
Hmm.
a social thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that
Mm.
was really interesting, is that it really matters what the social interaction is, and
Yeah.
and
Well,
just re
yeah.
having real relationships. So
Hmm.
again, encouraging our sisters to,
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Encouraging our sisters to
yeah,
get together, to
yeah,
right, and because life's doing the messy things too, not just those standing on the sideline kind of things, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Great article. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to today's episode on habits.
Okay.
We're focusing in on James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which we talked about in episode 50, that we were going to do an episode on it. The book starts out with James telling his story and the power of habits, and how he, not purposely looking for it, but because of what happened in his life, it ended up having such an effect on his life. So when James was a sophomore in high school, he played baseball, and I guess he was just standing on the side, is that somebody threw a bat and it crushed his face.
Ugh,
It hit him in the
yeah.
face and it crushed his face. He said like his one eyeball slid down his face and was
Ugh.
like not in the right position.
Oh, gee.
And so basically his face was smashed by this baseball bat. So he had a broken nose, he had multiple skull fractures, he had two shattered eye sockets and a concussion. And
Oh.
he was flown by helicopter to a hospital and I they may have put him in a coma. He went into a coma. I don't know if they put him into one or he went into one. I think he was unconscious anyway.
Hmm.
Fortunately, and obviously, he survived,
Yep.
but he spent many, many months recuperating. And then as he came to and he had to work really, really hard physically to recuperate and to make it back on the baseball team, which was his goal and
Mhm.
really big thing for him. So he did make it back on the baseball team by his senior year, but he rarely made it onto the field.
Mm.
And James wrote, despite my lackluster high school career, I still believe I could become a great player. And I knew that if things were going to improve, I was the one responsible for making it happen. So that's how he felt in high
Mhm.
school. And the turning point came is that when he began college. He earned a spot on the college baseball team, but he was at like the bottom of the roster as a freshman.
Mm.
So he knew he wasn't going to be a starter anytime soon. So he just focused on getting his life in order. And
Mm.
while everybody else was out partying and staying up late, he built good sleep habits and went to bed early each night. He kept his room neat and tidy. He just worked on having good habits and an orderly life.
Mm.
And at first, the improvements were minor, but they gave James this sense of control of his life. And he started to feel this confidence again. And that confidence showed up in his study habits and his grades. And he got straight A's that first year of college.
Mm.
And as each semester passed, James wrote, I accumulated small but consistent habits that ultimately led to results that were unimaginable to me when I started. For example, the first time in my life, I made it a habit to lift weights multiple times per week. And in the years that followed, my 6 foot 4 inch frame bulked up from featherweight 170 to a lean 200 pounds.
Wow. Mm.
So 6 years after being hit in the face with a bat and in a coma,
Mhm.
he was selected as the top male athlete at his college and awarded the university's highest academic honor. So this is
Wow.
like everything.
Mhm.
James never ended up playing baseball professionally. Looking back on those years, I believe I accomplished something just as rare. I fulfilled my potential. The
Mhm.
experience taught me a critical lesson. Changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you're willing to stick with them for years. We all deal with setbacks, but in the long run, the quality of our lives often depends on the quality of our habits. With the same habits, you'll end up with the same results. But with better habits, anything is possible. And that's what James wrote at the beginning of his book, Atomic Habits.
Wow. What a story. Also in his book, he shares a step-by-step plan for building better habits, not just for days or weeks, but for a lifetime. And he states that science supports everything that he's written in the book. And he explains the science of how to create and change those habits in a way that's easy to understand and apply. And he uses so many great stories and things like that to really clearly make his points evident. Clear writes that the backbone of this book is his four-step model of habits: cue, craving, response, and reward, and the four laws of behavior change that evolve out of these steps.
And I like that this book is not a dry academic book. It's packed with real world examples that make it interesting to read. So, all through this book are story after story, true stories that give an example of what he's talking about and how powerful our habits are.
Mhm.
At the beginning, he writes about the British cycling team, and they were terrible for decades. like embarrassingly bad. And I don't know if any of our listeners were followers of cycling, but I have been since the 80s when I studied in Europe. So I just, Europeans really are interested in cycling. So they had this new coach come in and said, all right, let's just focus on tiny improvements everywhere. Better seat cushions, small adjustments in gear, better sleep habits. He just wanted to do this 1% improvement. And what happened is they went from 0 medals to dominating the 2012 Olympics. They started to have winners of the Tour de France, which is the #1 cycling race. And this happened in just a few years. And that
Mhm.
was the magic of small, consistent tweaks to everything, not just one big, let's just focus on this one thing and make big, big improvements in it. No, it was just small improvements in every area. And that shows how 1% improvements every day lead to massive transformations. It's not about willpower, it's about setting up systems that make success inevitable. Now, as an aside, we have to say that after James Clear published Atomic Habits, some British cycling team members were accused of doping. Has kind of a disclaimer. You can go to his atomichabits.com site, which he says the first chapter of Atomic Habits is not about cycling, but rather about how habits compound over time and why making small improvements on a daily basis can lead to a significant difference in the long run. It's about the philosophy of continuous improvement, and that's why it's useful.
Mhm. Okay. So the book makes habit building feel doable, not overwhelming. And that is definitely one of the really positive things about the book. And the idea is simple. Tiny habits lead to huge results over time. Clear breaks it down into 4 game-changing rules, and they are: number 1, make it obvious. Want to drink more water? Don't just tell yourself you'll do it. Put a glass by your bedside or near your workspace where you literally can't miss it. So make that thing that you want to change, make it accessible, easy to do there. Make it attractive is number 2. Struggle to work out? Pair it with something you love. I really like this example. Watch your favorite show only while on the treadmill or reward yourself with a smoothie afterward. So there's something that is positive that's attached to that and makes it attractive. I think watching a show while you work on your treadmill is something a lot of people do, but that smoothie reward afterwards sounds good too. Number 3 is make it easy. If you're learning a new skill, instead of aiming for an hour of practice, start with 2 minutes a day. That's something that's doable. Definitely 2 minutes a day. And it's less intimidating once you start. You're most likely to continue. And sometimes when you're trying to build a large skill, when you can just do something that's sustained, even one piece of that for such a short period of time, you'll have some success and feel more able to go on. And the fourth thing is to make it satisfying. You want to save money? Use an app that shows your progress visually. So every dollar you save feels like a win. So you're trying to make it just feel like you are really getting something out of that and satisfying yourself with it. And then he also talks about breaking a bad habit, and you can invert the laws. So the first thing is to make it invisible, take away those things that you really shouldn't be doing. Don't make it part of your daily activity, refrain from that. And then make it unattractive. So making things that you really shouldn't be doing unattractive in ways that make you feel you don't want to do them. And then number 3, making it difficult. So if you're going to access, say, coffee with creamer in the morning, and you know you really shouldn't be having it, don't have it in the fridge or make it difficult to get. And then make your bad habit, make it unsatisfying. So something like realizing that every time you eat chocolate or something that is with lots of calories, maybe you could have a calorie content of what what you're eating on your fridge so that it's unsatisfying. Make better choices, put better things in your fridge. Those things can help you feel a lot better about breaking those bad habits.
Yeah, one of the most helpful ideas in the book is habit stacking, which is attaching a new habit to something you already do.
Yeah.
So, brushing your teeth, do 5 squats right after.
Hmm.
Drinking coffee in the morning, write down one thing you're grateful for while you sip. When you attach it to something that you already do as a habit, it
Hmm.
helps you to remember to do it. It's something you can tie it to. And the
Hmm.
habit stacking idea came from B.J. Fogg, who's the founder of the Stanford University's Behavior Design Lab. One of the things I like about James Clear's book is that he takes information from other authors who have studied habits. Like he said, this is all science backed and proven, behavioral science, etc. So BJ Fogg is the one that came up with the whole idea of habit stacking. And his story is interesting is that what he did is he always wanted to get fit and lose weight, and he would have these goals of doing that, and then he never did it. And so one day he decided, I believe, and I may not have this exactly right, but he decided that every time he went to use the restroom, which he would have to do several times a day, he was going to
Hmm.
do 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups.
Wow.
And he got himself to do it. And then what he found was when this habit stacking is that you started to see improvement,
Hmm.
and then it made him want to do more of it. And he found this hack that, wow, this is great. And then he realized you could apply it to other habits you wanted to create.
Right.
So it does really work. There's plenty of testimonies about how habit stacking really helps us to change our behavior.
Hmm. Do you habit stack anything, Ellie?
I do.
Hmm.
I have.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Another doable example, the 2-minute rule, Claire says, is make it so easy you can't say no. Instead of committing to reading for an hour, just read one page. Instead of promising a 30-minute workout, just put on your sneakers. Getting started is often the hardest part. That is so true. Just having a little piece of that habit that you're trying to form, if you can just get yourself to a point of even starting, sometimes that can be just so difficult. He also talks about making small adjustments that compound over time. Imagine switching from soda to sparkling water. We were just having this discussion. That might seem minor, but do that daily for a year and it's a huge health shift. It's about playing the long game. I think just substituting good things for bad things, making more clear choices in your mind about what you're actually doing. It's small adjustments that compound over time. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
And I think, I mean, most of us feel like I I can do anything for 2 minutes. If that's
True.
all I'm asking of myself, just do it for 2 minutes.
I know.
Just
That's
two
right.
minutes.
Just
And then okay,
that,
and then
yeah.
be happy with that. If you make it
Uh,
2 minutes, be happy with that. And
right.
usually over time, you can go longer. And sometimes
Right.
even the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad now that I got myself to do it.
Right. Right. Or you just get up in the morning and instead of having that coffee with that heavily laden stuff in it, you choose a tea or like a herbal tea and you just make that little shift once. It's kind of a nice thing, but I think one of the problems is that you really want those big things to occur right now. I want to lose that 40
Mm,
pounds right now. But it's over time, right? And that's it's the hardest thing to be waiting for to have the patience to wait for something to work. Yeah.
yeah. So the magic of atomic habits isn't really about a motivation, it's about the systems that make
Mm.
success easy. Whether you
Right.
want to exercise more or sleep better or finally finish that novel, the book gives you the tools to make it happen in a way that actually sticks.
Mm.
I think one of the big things, and what's almost a detriment to doing this episode, is this book it's I think 270 some pages, not including the notes.
Mm.
And on every page there's like different ideas, different strategies that I just felt like, gosh, how could we take all this information and put it in a one podcast episode? We really
Right.
can't. I mean, there's just like too much in it. And all the stories too that go with it that illustrate and that encourage.
Hmm.
that was one of my thoughts about the book is that it's just jam-packed with stuff. And I just highly recommend it. I just highly
Mhm.
recommend the book. And obviously, it's a big deal with a lot of people because it is a huge bestseller.
Right.
It's a bestseller. But of
Right.
course, it doesn't mean anything if you read it and don't put any of it into practice.
That's right. That's right.
I wanted to say I think I mentioned earlier that there are other good books on habits like Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg and The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is nice that James Clear took all the work of other people on habits and included in this book. So that also makes Atomic Habits really
Mhm.
a good book to read because it's not just James' thoughts. He takes in all this information and studies and research by other authors and professors, etc., on habits.
Mhm.
So, what
Right.
are your thoughts on the book,
Well,
Janine?
I'm the kind of person that tries to do it all at once, I guess. I really want that success quickly. And it's just such a good reminder of what is the turtle in the hare, right?
Hmm.
You just daily doing things over and over and incorporating habits carefully and thinking about those habits that you want to, stacking things together, being intentional. I like how he starts when he writes, write down everything that you do in a day, document it, and then see, is this thing positive, is this thing negative, or is this thing just something that you do? And so I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, wow, it'd take me a long time to actually go through like I guess you go through a normal day of what you do and what you don't. But boy, would it ever be informative as well as to just things that you do without even thinking when you're writing them down and how you could change those habits if you actually pinpointed ones you don't need anymore, right? So I thought that was really interesting.
Right. And that's a big deal. I mean, as believers,
Mm,
I think we kind of go through life, and especially by our age, we have some really well set in habits
very
that
well said.
we don't think about. I mean, that's the whole thing about a habit.
Yeah.
You do it without thinking.
Hmm.
And there may be a lot of habits that don't serve us. And there's a lot of things that we wish we would do or could do,
Hmm.
but we just won't focus on it. We won't take the time to intention. It's almost like we become this victim of our life.
Right.
And it actually reminds me of,
Mm.
I don't remember what episode it was where we had Doreen Steenland talked about neuroplasticity, and she says that it's like we look at life as happening to us instead of
Hmm.
us living life, doing
Yeah.
life. It's like
Yeah.
things are happening to me. And as a Christian, that should not be how we
Mhm.
live. Yes, there's certain things we can't control that happen in life, but
Right.
we are living life, right? We need to
Right.
live life with intention. We're not just these victims.
Right. Not just flying around on autopilot.
Right.
And
So we
that,
should ponder, okay, uh,
mm,
looking at our life, writing down, okay, why do I do that? I'm
right,
wasting so much time
exactly.
doing this, and I really want to do the things that count.
Right.
But
Right. Well, I think he gives a good example or two in the book of people that were just like work functioning on autopilot and just kept doing the same thing over, but it didn't pertain to the situation at all. And people were, what are you doing? Like the clerk that continues to do something one way, or you continue to go through a routine in a day the same way, but it really makes no sense. And you just keep applying the same thing over. But that's just a waste of your time when you could be doing things that would be more beneficial. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Okay, so some of our favorite quotes from the book.
Mm.
It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. Too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. And I just
Right.
want to say this. I've heard so many like Christian influencers say that exact thing. You need to
Mhm.
take massive action, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, is that sustainable?
Right. Right. Not
Slow and
sustainable.
steady wins the
Right.
race.
Yeah.
It's like they're just trying to sell you something.
Yeah, exactly. True. So the other quote was improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run, like you were just saying. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Amazing. Conversely, if you get 1% worse for each day, you'll decline nearly down to zero. Wow. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more,
Yeah.
right? That's sure putting it out there so that you can eyeball that and say, wow, 37% better, 37 times, sorry, better, just doing that one thing. That's amazing,
Yeah.
right?
And then in
Hmm.
1 year, if you don't fix
Yeah,
it, right, you get 1% worse, then you're
yeah,
almost zero in 1 year.
right.
Amazing.
Exactly.
I remember hearing Simon Sinek. He was talking about how he knows if he went to the gym 3 or 4 days a week and
Mhm.
did exercise,
Yeah,
that eventually, over time, he would get fit. But
right,
the problem is after a week or two, he doesn't see any progress.
right.
It's this idea, and then you just quit.
Mhm.
And he goes,
Yeah,
like, you can't do that. It's the
no.
habit. Because we know if we stick with whatever it is, that this
Mhm.
good thing that we want to do, it's going to produce something good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is so biblical, right? We have to just keep at it. It's being self-disciplined, right? It's the fruit of the spirit. It's being able to control ourselves and to wait patiently for something to happen, not to try to grasp everything at once. Yeah. All
That, and
right.
I think James Clear, who I don't believe is a believer, probably
Mm.
doesn't want to talk about
No.
self-discipline.
No, that's just
I
us.
mean,
Yeah.
he wants you to feel realize it's very easy. That's why it's very small changes that you can
Right.
just get yourself to do, which is
Hmm.
true. But
Hmm.
again, for believers, self-control is a fruit of the spirit.
Hmm.
So it isn't something that we should like, oh, you expect self-control, forget it.
Right. Right.
It's something we
True.
should want.
Right. Yeah,
It's a fruit of the
absolutely.
spirit. Yeah.
Okay.
Another quote is, and this may be my favorite. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The
Mm.
same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. They seem to make little difference on any given day, and yet the impact they deliver over the months and years can be enormous. It is
Mm.
only when looking back 2, 5, or perhaps 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones becomes strikingly apparent.
Right. Yeah. So, sisters, where do you want to be? 2, 5, 10 years from now? What habits can you build and habits to break today to be a happier, healthier, more productive follower of Jesus in the future? Isn't that so true? So, when we think of where we are now, we are a conglomeration of all those habits that we have formed and done over the years. So if you're fit and healthy and feeling fine, then you've made some good, healthy choices. But now you can also choose to make other choices. But it will take time and it's going to take effort and it's not going to just be next Tuesday, you're going to be all better. It's going to take some effort on your part and some self-discipline. So, yeah. We are considering reading through Atomic Habits as an online book study. What we'd like to do is meet weekly and discuss a chapter and help one another implement those habit changes. So please let us know in our private Facebook group if you would be interested in doing that. We would love to come together and just have this a whole group activity that we do, right, Ellie? Yeah.
Yes, and it would be a discussion. It
Hmm.
wouldn't necessarily be where we're setting it up. You have to go home and do a bunch of homework, but we hope that as we're reading
Yeah.
through the book that people are applying it to their life. And then
Right.
we can encourage one another, come together. Again, this really powerful community and accountability. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and just sharing with one another, just being transparent and not worrying about where we're starting, but just that we're coming together to do something new and just investing in that time with each other and getting to know each other too, being supportive and in that sisterhood family. Yeah, so. Oh, did you know that you can become a member of our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community? And if you want, right, you can also email us if you have any questions or suggestions at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com. We'd love to have you give us some suggestions or give us some input, and definitely give us input as to whether or not you'd want to do that atomic habits sort of exercise with us. Yeah, read the book together.
Yes, absolutely. So you could email us
Yeah,
interest, or you can post it in the private Facebook community.
right.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. God bless you all.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of his glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time.
Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice for mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.